Little people. I am Sam and Mac's mom, Mrs. Mariani, and I would love to read you a few Valentine books. Valentine's Day is coming up next week. It's on February 14th every year. So in just a few days, we'll be celebrating that special day. I have 3 books to read to you, and this first one is called Love, Ruby Valentine. See that cover? By Lori Friedman and illustrated by Lynn Averill-Cravath. Deep in the heart of Heartland, in a house of oak and pine, with her feathered friend named Lovebird, lived Ruby Valentine. Now Ruby had a favorite day, and Valentine's was it. According to all who knew her, this day was a perfect fit. Ruby loved to say, "I love you," and she loved to say, "Be mine." And she loved to sign her hearts and cards, "Love, Ruby Valentine." Valentine's was Ruby's chance to do what she loved best. As the special day grew closer, Ruby would not stop to rest. With 5 days until Valentine's, Ruby started making cards. She and Lovebird sprinkled glitter. They curled ribbons by the yards. With 4 days down and counting, Ruby and Lovebird began to bake. They cut out heart-shaped cookies. They iced a heart-shaped cake. They never left the kitchen. With only 3 days more to go, Ruby and Lovebird filled up goodie bags and tied each one with a bow. With just 2 days remaining, they worked morning, noon, and night, signing cards and wrapping gifts until each package was just right. With Valentine's 1 day away, Ruby carefully checked her list. Then she loaded up her wagon. No one in Heartland would be missed. The night before Valentine's Day, Ruby chose what she would wear. She tried on her purse and shoes. She washed and curled her hair. When everything was in order, Ruby made a special sign. It sat high atop her wagon and read, "Love, Ruby Valentine." Tired from all her hard work, Ruby lay down on her bed. She hadn't planned to stay long, just to picture the day ahead. But when she closed her eyes, Lovebird scarcely made a peep. She snuggled up next to Ruby, and they both fell fast asleep. They slept right through the morning and on into afternoon. They slept right past the evening. They never saw the moon. And when they finally awoke, Ruby saw with dread the date. That was when she realized she was very, very late. "I can't believe I missed Valentine's. Now I'll have to wait a year to tell everyone I love them." Ruby wiped away a tear. She slowly picked up cards and started putting gifts away, when in a squawky voice, Lovebird said, "Let's go today." Ruby looked at Lovebird. Folks won't like this one bit. It's the 15th, not the 14th. They're sure to pitch a fit. But Lovebird kept on squawking, so Ruby made a choice. All we can do is try it, she said in a tiny voice. So she straightened up her wagon and tried hard not to frown. With Lovebird on her shoulder, Ruby slowly walked through town. She delivered cards and candy. She passed cookies from a tray. She gave out gifts and goodie bags to all the townspeople that day. Then she summoned up the courage and did what she had to do. I know I'm so late, she cried. But I'm so sorry too. What happened next surprised her. No one seemed to mind. They just thanked and hugged her for being sweet and kind. You've made today a celebration, so why would we protest? Hip, hip, hooray for Ruby. We think you're the very best. And that's when Ruby realized that saying, I love you, doesn't have to wait till Valentine's. Any day will do. So now she sends out cards all year that say, will you be mine? And she signs each and every one. I bet you can guess. Love, Ruby Valentine. What a nice story. The next Valentine story is an oldie but goodie called Cranberry Valentine. I think, what does cranberry have to do with a Valentine? Guess we'll find out. Cranberry Valentine. Now the last one was a poem, right? This one is not a poem, it's just a storybook. It was a gray February day in Cranberry Port, and the warm fire was welcome in Grandmother's kitchen. Maggie, Grandmother, and Mr. Whiskers sat around the table amid ribbon, lace, and pink hearts. Maggie was making valentines for her friends. Valentine Day was only a week away. Mr. Whiskers, Maggie's friend and neighbor, looked wistful. Well, when I was in school, no one ever sent me a Valentine, he said. Never. Later, after Mr. Whiskers had returned to his little gray cottage over the dunes, Maggie spoke to Grandmother. Oh, poor Mr. Whiskers. I feel sorry for him. He's never gotten a Valentine, she said. Grandmother was in a rush. I'm off to my sewing circle, Maggie. Can we talk about it tonight? Two days later, Mr. Whiskers' fortune had changed, but he didn't think it was for the better. It's terrible, Maggie. Look what somebody sent me. He stood at Maggie's door in a fury and waved a frothy lace valentine in the air. It's all about cupids and lovebirds and hearts and flowers, and it smells like rose perfume. He wrinkled his nose. How sweet, said Maggie. Revolting, said Mr. Whiskers. Who did it? wonder if it could have been that lady in a green coat. Yesterday she asked me where you lived," said Maggie. Mr. Whiskers didn't worry too much until he received 3 more fragrant valentines at the Cranberry post office the very next day. He quickly hid them under his coat. Now Mr. Whiskers was getting nervous. At Seth's general store, 2 more greetings for Mr. Whiskers appeared mysteriously. "Gosh, listen to this one, Mr. Whiskers," cried Seth. "Little Cupid shot his dart. Love for you has filled my heart. Be my Valentine." Woo! Mr. Whiskers turned red and hid his face behind the mops. "Say, all week some lady in a green coat has been in here asking questions about you," said Seth. "Suffering codfish, someone's after me," groaned Mr. Whiskers. "Could be," said Seth. "Why me?" asked Mr. Whiskers. Then he reflected. Why not? I'm the best clam digger in the bog country. I have wonderful whiskers. I sing like a blinking bird." Seth broke into Mr. Whiskers' shining thoughts. "Now, Mr. Whiskers, if some lady gives you a present on this Valentine's Day, you should have a box of chocolates to give in return. A gentleman would." Mr. Whiskers looked terrified at the idea. Seth chose a red satin heart-shaped box and handed it to his friend. And at the sound of the door opening, the storekeeper looked up. "Oh, here comes the lady who's been looking for you," said Seth. "Ma'am, I'd like to introduce Mr. Whiskers." The lady in the green coat. Mr. Whiskers froze. He was trapped like a fly in a honey pot. The lady in the green coat flew across the room to him. "Aha, Mr. Whiskers, at last! I've been looking for you everywhere. I hear you're the best man in town to fix an old chimney." "Fix a chimney? That's all? I mean, it will be a pleasure, ma'am." When the lady in the green left, Mr. Whiskers did a little sailor's jig. "Saved!" he cried. "I'll give the candy to Maggie and Grandmother," he decided. He whistled all the way to their house on the edge of the bog. At the door, he bowed deeply to Maggie. "Candy for my best friends," he announced. "Come in," said Maggie. "Look, Grandmother, Mr. Whiskers has a present for the whole sewing circle." Mr. Whiskers heard a hum of voices in the parlor. "Well, I don't know." Mr. Whiskers hesitated. "Candy for all of us?" asked Grandmother. The ladies in the circle stopped their sewing and looked up. They began to smile. "How did you know it was the sewing circle who was sending all those valentines? We've been busy trying to keep you guessing, and all the time you knew it was us," declared Grandmother, and Mr. Whiskers shuffled his feet. Suddenly, he put it all together. These were the secret admirers who had scared him with valentines. He drew a breath. Knew? Of course I knew, he sputtered. Suffering codfish, you can't fool an old seabird like me. Grandmother seated him near the fire with tea and cake, and when the red satin box was passed, he poked 4 chocolates before he found one with a caramel filling. Grandmother pretended not to see. Mr. Whiskers beamed. It wasn't so bad to be the Valentine of a whole sewing circle, he decided. Valentine's Day could be a wonderful day for people to think of one another. Now he could hardly wait for next year. Happy Valentine's Day. Oh, I think Mr. Whiskers' attitude changed towards Valentine's Day. And our last book is called The Ballad of Valentine. A little reflection. Ballad of Valentine by Allison Jackson, illustrated by Trisha Tusa. Now, if it says ballad, it's probably going to rhyme, and this one does. In a cabin in a canyon near a mountain laced with pine lived a girl who was my sweetheart, and her name was Valentine. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Valentine. I've written 40 letters, but you've never read a line. If this sounds familiar, there's a song called Clementine, and this is a parody of that song, which I will not sing the whole thing. Gave the letters to the mailman to deliver rain or shine, but he couldn't find your address. So I penned this Valentine. Then I trained a homing pigeon and attached my note with twine. But he flew to Madagascar, where he dropped your Valentine. So I built a raging bonfire set to black and smoky rime. But a cyclone stole the message, and it vanished one more time. Next, I tapped a note in Morse code, asking you to please be mine, but the signal hit a blizzard as it crossed the county line. Then I rented out a mail car on the Westward Railroad line. But the train derailed in Denver, leaving letters strewn behind. Paid a rider on a pony, but his filly wouldn't mind. Bucked him clear to Arizona, where he's now been reassigned. Bought an airplane, wrote a message with a big heart underlined, but the wind erased 3 letters, and you're now my Al-ein. Tied my message to a boulder with a sentimental rhyme, but it rolled down into quicksand. Now your Valentine is slime. Well, I'm not much of a writer, but I tried to drop a line. If you ever get this message, will you be my Valentine? Ballad of Valentine. Wow, that had a lot of good rhyming words in, didn't it? A lot of long I sounds I heard in that word. Very good. Well, I hope everyone has a super Valentine's Day. I loved reading to you, and that's all. Bye.